Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we talk about what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now today I want to talk about Donald John Trump, with whom I have only one thing in common, which is both our mothers were ladies from the Northwest Highlands of Scotland. Mine stayed there in her native land, and Mary Ann MacLeod emigrated to the metropolis of New York, to which my Highland mother never actually ventured, although I spent a lot of time there. Now, it's widely acknowledged and also anticipated that Trump will begin to exert economic pressure on China at the beginning of his new presidency. Now, this is evidenced by his appointments to key positions in his administration and the comments he's made quite recently about trade, etc. Now, you have to understand that despite its outwardly peaceful rhetoric, China does not appear to stick to the Christian philosophy of turning the other cheek. However, it does like to make martial arts moves that use its enemy's strengths against them. So I think it's likely that Beijing will be able to deliver retaliatory measures that will be particularly sensitive to the US more vulnerable areas, which is its debt and its growing deficit. Plus, putting pressure on the dollar, Beijing has the major advantage of having a political system that's not aligned with the Western-style liberal democracy, which serves it well in the up-and-coming economic conflict. Moreover, given the American and Chinese economies are closely intertwined, well, to an extent, with China having a 400 billion advantage, in contrast to Europe, it's unlikely that they will be able to attack it in any meaningful way. Instead, any retaliatory steps will be calibrated and they'll focus on inflicting the maximum pain for the minimum effort. Now, what measures could the Chinese leadership implement to guarantee the retaliatory actions against any damage on them by also being swift and decisive? Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website at scobricsinsight.com to further develop it. You can do this by making a small donation, which can be done by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you all now. Now, from China's perspective, the most straightforward course of action would be to get rid of and flog off some of its huge portfolio of US Treasuries on the global market, just like Russia did. These two bills are instruments which the US borrows money. By selling them, it drives down their value below par. This would create a market where investors would be keen to purchase them. In the event of an urgent need to borrow money, Washington would find it more challenging to do so, particularly with new issues. Now, the market's already flooded with cheap bonds, and there's little appetite for purchasing new ones, certainly not at par value. So Beijing can also partially restrict capital inflows, which will have a significant impact on the US economy and the position of the new administration. Currently, Beijing has over $770 billion in US T-bills, while Hong Kong controls another $220 billion of the T-bills. So in other words, China has almost $1 trillion in US bonds, and creating a small reduction, even by 10 or 15%, would have a huge and significant impact on the US debt market. However, it doesn't matter. And China would actually only need to decide not to buy any new tranches as they come up. The withdrawal of such a significant investor in the market would have a significant impact on the US Treasuries market. Now, to find and identify a new source of capital, the US would have to make significant concessions, such as increasing the yield on their securities. Now, particularly that the US and the EU have frozen Russian financial assets. Who in their right mind as a government or even a pension fund is going to start from a foreign country, particularly or a sovereign wealth fund, going to buy US T-bills knowing they can be frozen and stolen on the whim of the US president and his advisors? Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund my channel and my website at scobricsinsight.com to further develop it. You can do this by making a small donation, which can be done by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me. Now, the effects of the stopping of the buying of US debt is currently what impact would be have of removing the credit card from an individual who's only accustomed to living beyond their means. I mean, somebody who spends more than it earns and has to borrow at the end of every month. Yeah, I know, governments of the G7 led by the US. I mean, this is a situation what the potential consequences are for the American economy in the event of a significant reduction in the ability to borrow. Now, I personally don't think that China is going to use this tool without a clear objective. Dumping treasuries would lead to a strengthening of the yuan, which have a negative impact on its exports. It would also have a destabilising effect on the global financial markets, which it doesn't want. However, that said, they must be well advised to understand that Beijing has the technical ability and the capacity to do this. Now, in light of China's experience in the trade war with the United States, a further option for the country's leadership could be to introduce targeted tariffs on American agricultural products. Now, as we know, on previous occasions, Beijing imposed tariffs on American soybeans, meat and milk products, and that had a detrimental effect on the businesses, particularly in the farm zones of Iowa, Minnesota, Indiana, Nebraska, Texas and Wisconsin. Now, given that the US is actually in a trade deficit and it's projected to exceed $45 billion in 2025, any restrictions would have a significant impact on the farmers who voted for Trump. Now, in 2018, China was not adequately prepared for its trade war and it responded reactively. Nevertheless, it was still able to cause a wave of bankruptcies amongst American farmers. Now it's adopted a more strategic approach. It's created a reserve of agricultural product, rearranging its imports from Brazil, other parts of Latin America, Russia and other parts of the world. In theory, China could also apply economic pressure to Republican-affiliated corporations, primarily those in the oil and gas industry. Despite the evident chill in relations, China remains an active importer of American LNG, with preliminary figures for the first 10 months of 2024 indicating it's up by 60%. Now, while the Chinese economy undoubtedly requires affordable energy, Beijing has effectively diversified its imports in that direction, and given the ability to import significant strains on American oil and gas companies. It's also worth noting that Beijing has the option of exerting further pressure on the US economy and defence potential through the crucial minerals and critical minerals, which are often called rare earths, antimony, but also the broader concept. I mean, early December, China restricted the export of gallium and germanium, as well as antimony and super hard minerals. Should the situation deteriorate further, there's a possibility that Beijing would add another measures. Now, over the past 2 decades, China has invested significant resources to gain control over critical materials production around the world. It's made strategic investments and engaged in capital diplomacy to get control of 58% of the world's lithium. Yeah, 58%. Now, this is as well as a significant influence on the mining of other critical metals, nickel in Indonesia, cobalt in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is anything but democratic as we know. Now, in theory, this affords Beijing control over the market for lithium-ion batteries, which is crucial to the global economy. Now, the existence of potential opportunities doesn't guarantee that China's actually going to do it or utilise them, but in practice, as anybody who's read Chekhov's gun principle, it doesn't apply. Beijing is a persistent but cautious player, and it uses its resources in a measured way. Now, Donald John Trump really has a huge task ahead of him in dealing with so many situations around the world. He needs to understand and get his advisors to understand that threatening the BRICS countries like China, India and Russia doesn't work anymore. The US is now realised and around the world as a paper tiger, just like its military offshoot NATO, and it really needs to get its house in order. I mean, the countries of the EU and the US have decimated their working class, middle class. They've destroyed the rails industries. I mean, does Apple, Dell or Hewlett Packard actually make anything in the US anymore? No, you don't. When your largest companies are not actually needed for anything for everyday life, like food, energy and a roof over your head, you can see that the world's gone upside down, and the American stock market has certainly gone that. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and if you want to help me, click on the thanks button at the bottom of the screen and make a donation. I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.